Hi everybody, Robert Dyer, and welcome to the Robert Dyer channel, where this past weekend I saw Captain Marvel, and I know a lot of the YouTube channels I regularly watch that have been really on target in criticizing The Last Jedi and Solo, A Star Wars Story, and some of the other SJW excesses in pop culture have really been giving Captain Marvel a hard time for a number of months now. And so my expectations going in were pretty low, but I actually ended up enjoying this movie quite a bit. For me, it was largely because of the story of the film, which turned out to be a lot more interesting than a lot of the previews made out. Although the cast was also, I think, very well chosen. Brie Larson was actually very good in this role. I'm not sure who in Hollywood could have played it better. But a lot of the negative things that were being said, I mean, I think you have to remember she actually won an Academy Award, so this is not exactly just a cardboard cutout. And then you have Ben Mendelsohn, who's in every movie these days, but with good reason. This may have been his best role yet. I was even able to tolerate Sam Jackson for 2 hours. I really have only liked him in Die Hard. I can't stand his performance in the Star Wars prequels. To a lesser extent, he's a little bit better as Nick Fury in the Avengers and all that, but this movie actually puts him back more in that kind of a character in Die Hard, where he's being hauled along for a ride. The story, that's what really made the movie. It's got, I'd say, 2 or 3 major twists, but also the plot is, you could say it was taken from an episode of Coast to Coast AM. We've seen in the previews the fighter pilot montages, but rather than just being some kind of Top Gun B-roll, it's actually an integral part of the plot, and it gets into the secret space program, the experimental planes that the U.S. government is working on. So it's another case of Marvel, the Marvel universe, and these movies tending to stick to probably the most credible interpretation of events after World War II. So I think if you're interested in any of that sort of stuff, UFOs, secret space programs, experimental aircraft, then I think you will definitely like the plot of the movie. The other big selling point for me, of course, is the nostalgia, the retro things, not only for the 90s, you know, they have, you've seen the blockbuster video in the preview, but the scene actually went on for a little bit longer. I just like to watch the videos of the old video stores on YouTube, even Cinemassacre, where they recreate an old 80s video store. She picks up one of those large VHS box sets of The Right Stuff. It's supposed to be some symbolism there for the character. You see some of the cardboard stand-ups from the video store. You also have the CD-ROM computers, pagers, internet cafes, Alta Vista search engine. You have the Impala SS, which is one of my top 10 cars of all time. I was glad to see that. And of course the soundtrack is very much the 90s. Really sort of the end of simpler times for America before 9/11, before a lot of us got red-pilled as to what's really going on. So definitely a lot of nostalgia there, but also because the character of Carol Danvers is probably born sometime in the early 70s, so you get a little bit of the 70s and 80s when they have the flashbacks. A lot of Camaros, Mustangs, a Trans Am, 80s arcade machines, Happy Days lunchbox, and even at one point when she has to destroy a bunch of missiles, She uses a missile command type of strategy. There was a lot of good dialogue, good writing, which is pretty rare these days. A lot of the humor is laugh out loud humor, also rare, but it's obviously a lot less dark than the DC universe or even the Avengers, the last one, which was kind of like a 2-hour funeral in some ways. And the musical score was very good. The composer did the music for Fortnite as well as for the Krypton TV show. It's sort of the synth orchestra combination, and you can also tell that she was sort of a protege of Hans Zimmer, who's probably the best of the more recent composers. I think this Captain Marvel soundtrack, I would put it up there with Doctor Strange, The Winter Soldier, Iron Man 3, Thor Ragnarok, and Thor the Dark World. Those are probably the best of the Marvel soundtracks, so I would say this is probably in the top 5 of the Marvel movie soundtracks. Another thing I liked is that in a world where Wonder Woman has sort of become an international hero instead of explicitly American, and when Superman can't any longer say the American way in the movies, I liked that when she chose the colors for her uniform that she was inspired by the colors of the United States Air Force. It really sort of identifies her not only as Captain Marvel but also American in identity. There's not much patriotism in the movies anymore, unfortunately. So I think two of the big reasons that you're seeing a $153 million opening weekend for this is, number one, female heroes can be successful if they are actually powerful. I would not want to sit through a 2-hour movie of the Black Widow, or unfortunately I did sit through 2 hours of Elektra and Catwoman back in the last decade, and those were just awful movies. You know, somebody running around in a tight suit in the woods for 2 hours, nobody wants to pay for that, and I think having been tricked, we're not going to fall for it again. But Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel, they actually have essentially godlike powers. I mean, at some point she destroys a big Star Destroyer type of battleship just by flying through it from one end to another. I think comic book audience, you either have to have a lot of power or you have to have a car and gadgets or something. You got to sustain people's interest for 2 hours. And of course the other thing is that if you're a Avengers fan, you kind of had to go to see this, so you're ready for the Avengers Endgame. So a lot of people did have to buy their tickets in advance and go into this, but having said that, this turned out to be a fine film in its own right, and I would certainly be interested in seeing a sequel. If I would say that I think I may have enjoyed this even more than Wonder Woman from the standpoint of the nostalgia, the retro aspects of it, as well as much more interesting storylines. I'm going to go ahead and give this 4 out of 5 stars. Hope you like this video. Share it with your friends. Please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.